Yeah, good. Okay. Well, hello. We've already said hello.
Hello.
But hello for the recording anyway. Um, I think it's important to start this by getting into a couple of ground rules that are going to help us to make this a success. All right. This is something that I've debated whether I should even offer at all. I'm not sure if the recording is ever going to be made public or not. You all being here will certainly have access to it, but I just haven't decided. Okay. Because we're not dealing in the realms of um, pop alchemy, I guess I would call it, right? Popular alchemy. I saw on Facebook a group today. Saw on you all right? Just
Yeah.
cough. Okay. Saw on Facebook a group today of alchemists with 44,000 members. And this goes back to the idea, right? And I'm sure that there's other groups with many more. I'll pick it on them in particular. But this goes back to the idea of something being esoteric having to be limited to a small group. There's no way to get to anything esoteric if it's everyone. All right. If 44,000 people are learning it, it's by de facto not esoteric. Okay. So I'm trying to keep this small, and I'm trying to keep this true to the notion of what it means to have something esoteric, inner circle. I have a general theme that I've laid out for each of these 16 things that we're going to go through together, these 16 meetings. But in keeping with the tradition of alchemy, I would also have to say that it's going to largely be dependent upon you and the kinds of questions that you ask. Okay. And the reason for that is because it's going to need to come from you, this stimulus and response. It's not going to be me projecting as much as you're used to in other types of meetings. So, are we in agreement that if you want to know something, you've got to ask it, because there's things that I'm not going to bring up unless you ask it. Okay, this puts you in the hot seat, and to make sure that this is a good meeting. But I will start off by asking you a question, because it's good to get the notion of what's in everybody about what alchemy is, right? Who wants to answer? What do you suppose alchemy is? Huh? Is it, the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse and whatever? I've been a child when I saw that last, but yeah, is it that? Yeah.
It's, for me, I think it's where you've got some ingredients and you put them together and do stuff with it, and then you create something else out of it.
Okay. So how does that differ from cooking or chemistry? Because you just described cooking or chemistry.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to teach a cooking class.
No, it's within the body, as in where you get into things and you change things in yourself. And yeah, I'm not very good at explaining it, but where you can crystallize things in yourself.
Wow, good word. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So,
okay. So you're taking it as an analogy to a chemical factory within oneself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both myself and Gurdjieff would agree with that. That's how he summed up part of his work, right? Which is, as you'll come to see over the next 16 weeks, is absolutely 100% alchemy. Absolutely. No, nothing else but alchemy. All right. There's one definition. It differs from chemistry from the standpoint, or cooking from the standpoint of it's occurring inside you rather than outside of you. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mark, care to venture?
As well as it being a physical thing.
hang on. Let me clarify something.
Yeah.
You don't have to be right. You just have to let me know what's in you about what you think alchemy is. Okay. So it's okay to. I mean, I'm just asking for that. For the what are your vectors? What's loaded in you about alchemy? What it is?
Okay. Sam, do you want to go next?
No.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay. As well as it being to do with a physical process, it's also to do with the unseen world.
Okay.
And it will be what it is to me is to be able to draw things from outside of yourself to mix with what you've got inside.
Okay.
To create something new, both a process and some kind of, as you say, crystallization.
Right. Which is a term, right, that we use, crystallization, to mean embodiments, isn't it? Higher embodiments, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Although you can crystallize anything in you if you work at it hard enough. You can crystallize your job in you. You can crystallize habits, right? That's the easiest thing. Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Sam?
just
Go ahead.
to add something else is that something that's cut me over the last day or so is it also to do with not only bringing one thing from outside in and then having some process, but to actually draw in many things and have a whole cooking internally.
Right.
To cause things that couldn't actually join and work together in their separate, unseen individual.
You're touching on one of the meanings of hermetic, right? Because something has to be sealed off from the rest of it in order to have an effect that, the human can't be exposed to certain processes. It has to be hermetically sealed within them until the result is there, and then the human can be exposed to the result. Case in point, right? Case in point, sodium chloride. Yeah, sodium chloride, table salt. If you eat raw sodium or raw chlorine, you'll die. Right? You can't form sodium chloride within yourself. It's the same kind of thing. What you're sort of referring to there is that hermetic aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
It's all right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's what's in you about it.
The first thing that comes to mind is the old idea of turning lead to gold. But
Yeah, right.
do
you think it's possible?
My chemistry and physics brain says no, but
do you know we've done it scientifically now?
Yeah,
it takes an exorbitant amount of energy. They have to slam a proton into lead, and they get a couple of nanomolecules of gold.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds an expensive way to make gold.
Yeah, it's not cost effective.
Get up and refine it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good. You're right. And we'll elevate that as well, okay, at some point, because it is about turning lead into gold. All right. Or turning Saturn into the sun, if you like the analogy. Yeah, Saturn being the planet of mortality, the planet of unconsciousness, the planet of death. Yeah, the Reaper, Kronos, Saturn eating his children, right? Time, all of this type of stuff. The symbol, the metal that goes with Saturn is lead, right? So transforming those types of aspects into something that is gold. That is solar nature, solar quality to it. One of the meanings of it. Enzi, what do you think?
First, hi everyone. I couldn't say hello before. Well, I should say that I'm very ignorant about this subject. So I'm very curious about how these meetings are going to be and what we are going to talk about. But what I know, as for now, is that alchemy is a discipline, or I don't know which term to use, but it teaches us how to transform something into another thing that is better than the original thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's correct or not, but that's the impression I have now.
Yeah, right. Well said, actually. I think that is a very succinct and also correct answer to it. The difference between something like, well, it may not even be the case with cooking, but it's certainly the case with chemistry. The difference between alchemy and chemistry. And by the way, Pleiades, you're welcome to jump in on this if you want to, but you hear me talk about it all the time, so you're going to give away the whole thing. She knows. But the difference between something like chemistry and alchemy is that the alchemist includes himself or herself in the process. Okay, it can look exactly the same. An alchemy lab, a modern alchemy lab, can look exactly like a modern chemistry lab. In fact, most of the chemical or apparatuses that chemists use today came from alchemy, didn't they? Or spagyrics, which is the creation of medicine, right? So a different type of pharmacology and chemistry both came from alchemy originally. But the fundamental difference is that the alchemist includes himself in the experiment, or herself in the experiment, because they give a great deal of value to the idea of consciousness. Okay, it's that conscious element. And Enzi, you're right. As you said, the idea behind alchemy is the transformation of something coarse into something fine, or the perfection of anything. Okay, it can be the perfection of base metals into gold, by analogy. I'll leave it up to you to figure out if that might actually be possible. Okay, I have my own opinion on it. I haven't done it. Okay, so I can't say yes. Yeah, no, right. I mean, we'd have a center, wouldn't we? I'd be going around collecting car batteries and buying centers and whatnot. But anyway, it's the idea that the alchemist is consciously present in the experiment. All right. Now, there's a couple of important things. First of all, when you will be asked to do certain very basic experiments on your own. It's going to include like little things like a jar, bit of alcohol, and some herbs. Okay, it's not like you have to go out and buy expensive things. Okay, and but picturing like an alchemist working in his old lab with those, what bellows are, right? To make the fire hotter. The alchemist wouldn't just with the bellows, he would breathe along with it, right? Because he realized that if his experiment needed to be hotter, then he needed to be hotter as well. He was part of the experiment, part of the process. So you see, they're breathing alongside the bellows as an example. Okay. Now, no one would be allowed into, depending on the type of operation taking place, but no one would be allowed into the lab. Yeah, because the alchemist would have to go through a certain self-preparation before sitting down in front of his experiment. He would put himself into a meditative state of awareness. He would become one with the experiment of what's going on. Okay, and what this brings about in a person is a concept that is fundamental to alchemy, which states "as above, so below." Yeah, it's in the second paragraph, isn't it, of that bit I had you read, that you're going to read. You don't have to read it just yet, right? But as above, so below. is to do with a concept of correspondence. Okay, if I wish this is the foundation of anything that could be called theurgic or magic or any of this sort of stuff, right? If I wanted to have more of a Martian influence in my life, I go out, and we'll actually work on doing this so that you can have these kinds of connections. But I go out and I would look at Mars and find Mars in the sky. I would look at Mars, I would form this connection to it, but that's not it. You see, I would also be wearing iron, and I would be dressed in red or have something red about my person. And, maybe have geraniums around the house, or, do some research on wolves. And you see where I'm going with this. You collect all of these frequencies in and around you, and these become the ingredients in your chemical interaction. So if you wish to attract something to your life, like a Martian influence or a Venusian influence or a Saturnian influence or any of these sorts of things, Jupiter, right? You have to get on the frequency of it. And this is how the chemist differs from the alchemist, because if you read through these scripts, these old alchemist texts, they'll have pretty specific instructions. And if you follow the instructions, you may or may not see the same outcome as they did, right? Because it has to do with your internal process. Whereas, if you go to take chemistry in school, if you follow the instructions, the fact that it's a science says that you will come up with the same outcome, won't you? If you mix this and mix that and add heat and do it in the right proportions, you're going to get the same substance that the person next to you did. That's not how alchemy works. Alchemy has to do with you and what you're bringing into the experiment. And this is why the outcomes can be different. You understand? So do you understand the principle of correspondence? We've talked about this before with octaves. You have a piano or a violin or a guitar, whatever the case is. You have some sort of musical instrument and you play the note C on the piano. You go up an octave higher, you play the note C there. It's going to sound similar, but not the same. It's going to be the same note, but in a different domain. And if you go up 8 more steps and you play C at the high end, it's going to have a similarity, but not the same. That's what the idea of correspondence is all about. You, for example, right, our head and neck area in astrology is generally related to Aries and Mars and this sort of thing. You have a Mars aspect to you, but it's not the same. It just sounds similar. Do you understand? Okay, and same with all of the other astrological influences that occur throughout your body. All right, are we getting too far in? Is this making sense? Correspondence, okay? Definitely learn this word and think on this word, okay? It has to do with what many of you have referred to in the past as the tuning fork principle. It's going to give you a lot more insight into how to do it, The tuning fork principle, for those who don't know, is if I have a tuning fork tuned to the note A, right? And I hand you a tuning fork also tuned to the note A, and I strike it so that it begins to ring. If you listen to yours, it will also sound the note A, even though you didn't strike it. It's because it has a resonance with what was produced over here, has an influence over there, okay? Now, unfortunately, that's as far as most people took it in their work on tuning fork concepts. Right? They wanted to get on the frequency of care or on the frequency of patience. And thinking about it or meditating upon it or these various internal things that you can do will get you some of it. But if you actually begin to collect things in the physical world into your aura, into your person, that have to do with what it is that you're trying to attract, then you will. Yeah, that's I guess the more theurgic way to do it, or the more esoteric way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just to kind of sum up, alchemy is the art of transforming base anything from a lesser level to a more perfected level. That can be yourself, that can be your thinking ability, that can be your your spirituality, that can be your level of being, that can be your relationship, that can be how you work, it can be how you drive, it can be how you communicate, it can be anything. So begin to look at your life as we go through this and look at how you can apply the idea of alchemical transformation to anything. Yeah, you are now in the business of elevating everything around you. If there's a relationship that you have with somebody that is low or grating, or whatever the case might be, is there something you can do to transform that into something better? Right? May not become perfect, but it might go from lead to tin at least, if you catch the meaning. Yeah. Lead to copper, if you're lucky. Right? You understand?
Yeah.
How you cook dinner can be alchemy. You see? Or how you burn dinner. if that's the current state of affairs, right? You can get there. It's more about the motive of it. It's not like, you need to become an expert chef, you need to become an expert communicator, you need to become an expert lover, for that matter, whatever the case is, right? But it's about this idea of applying this concept of wanting to elevate something around you, everything around you, wanting to elevate it. And what you're really doing is you're taking on a bit of God's business. Yeah. God has a planet. Let's look at it this way. Where did gold come from? Literal gold in the earth. Where did it come from? Given the current state of thinking is that 13-ish billion years ago, everything was hydrogen. How in the hell did we get gold to begin with? That's a good question.
Come on, Brian. Where did gold come from?
The current scientific thinking is that it was formed in a supernova before the solar system was formed. Then when the solar system formed, got deposited on the planet by, I think it was asteroid impact.
Comets and meteors.
Yeah.
Yeah, impacts. Right. So that's the alchemy of creation. Right. 13.4 billion years or so in the making to get this little minuscule bit of gold that obviously the planet needs for some purpose, right? It's not for adornment and jewelry, but it was important for creation to make it and to then deposit it here, right, and elsewhere throughout the universe. Now, what I mean by taking on some of the work of God in creation is that we can help accelerate these natural processes. Now, I'm no longer referring to turning lead into gold, but I'm referring to what I was talking about before, right? Of elevating and refining all of these types of things. You, having this conscious ability in yourself, are able to expedite that aspect. The idea is that creation is trying to get towards perfection. I'll tell you something startling that I came across yesterday, actually, and it's this. I've been looking for signs that the planet is getting fed up with humans. And one of them that I think I shared many months ago was this bird had an existential moment, right? A self-aware moment. In the scientist laboratory, they had this bird and they would teach it words, like Pollywanna cracker, that kind of thing. It's a crow, I think it was, but they're very smart. And they were doing an experiment where they would say, "What color is that?" And Polly, is the name, okay? Polly would say gray, right? And they'd say, what color is that? Blue, right? But because it was trained to do so. And then all of a sudden, Polly looked at them with one eye, because that's how they go, looked at them and said, what color am I? Was never, ever, ever taught to do that. It was never taught to ask that question. Now, scientists go, oh, wow, you know, this is great. This is evolution. Me, I look at it and go, oh, shit. Humans are failing. The planet is now experimenting with other creatures on this planet to see if they can adapt to a higher level of consciousness, right? And so it sprinkled a little bit on a prone bird that had a moment of self-awareness and said, what color am I? Yeah, should be chilling for the human race if you take it the way I mean it. Incidentally, they've discovered now that chimpanzees, certain groups of chimpanzees, have started making tools. They have been using tools for millions of years, literally, right? The same one. Stick a stick in an ant hole and see if you can get ants out of it. Now they're finding that these colonies of chimpanzees out in the wild are making more sophisticated tools, right? Something you know, we're not to the level of like the Bronze Age for them, but they're understanding the concepts of things like levers and mechanical advantage and, you know, certain things, something they have never done for millions and millions of years. Not only that, but they're beginning to teach it to each other. Now, the pressure that happens there, Mark, if I have to teach you something and we have no language, no way to communicate, that creates an urgency and a pressure in me, doesn't it, to be able to figure out a way to impart this information to you. And so together, you and I have to create this language for one another. Now, all of a sudden, you've got chimpanzees that are having that have never had human interaction, but developing simplistic communication mechanisms between one another so they can teach one skill to another chimpanzee. And then they go and teach that to another tribe that then shares their knowledge of tools that's different back to this tribe. You see, very scary things happening right now, right? And I was saying to Pleiades last night, I think it's honestly later than most people realize. If you take the average person on the street and you say, excuse me, are you sentient? Are you conscious? Are you aware? Right? Invariably, they'll be like, oh yeah, of course, you know. Whether it's true or not, they assume that they are. But you see what happens in the planetary domain with humans, the way that this naturally works is that we will become diminished. If we don't step up to the plate, we'll become very much like ants or bees, right? Where we have a very complex organizational structure or society with no sentience or consciousness whatsoever. Yeah. And I think we're almost there, to be honest. I think the planet exerts a numbing influence once it's decided that this, whatever species, human in this case, this species is not going to be able to make muster, not going to be able to rise to the occasion of what's needed, and that maybe something else is needed. I think we're a lot closer to that than we realize, actually. Yeah, it's this kind of generalization, this general numbing that's taking place. This is why I stand up here and do this sort of thing, because if you can wake up a little bit and you can help someone else to wake up a little bit, perhaps it will prevent that outcome. That's alchemy. Okay, that's helping creation perfect something, everything it can around it. And the thing is, everything has within it the seed of its own self-perfection. Soak in those words for a minute. Everything has within it the seeds of its self-perfection. Take a grape, for example. This is why, one of the reasons why grapes have been considered as a kind of a esoteric, symbolically holy food, right, or holy thing, especially in the making of wine. Do you know why? Do you know why in the making of wine? Who knows what that white dust is on grapes? Have you ever seen a grape growing in the wild?
Yeah, it's already got yeast on the skin.
Yeah, it's yeast.
What the white stuff on the skin is, it's yeast.
That's right. That's right. And so the grape already has its built into itself its own ability to make wine, because when you expose yeast to sugar through the fermentation and rotting process, the yeast eats the sugar and excretes alcohol, ethanol, and a couple other alls, and yeah, and turns itself into wine. Humans are very much like that as well. You have this ingrained soul and spirit, or soul and spiritual aspects to yourself that can actually transform you into something else. If you were an alien from another planet entirely, where wine was never ever manufactured, right? And you came and someone handed you a grape and then a glass of wine, would you be able to draw the connection? Would you be able to understand that this made this?
No.
Pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. All right. I'll stop for a minute and I'll let you ask a question if you wish to.
Something that you said about having the seeds within us caused two things in me. One was, how do we get those seeds activated?
Yes.
And then it jumped to, once those seeds are activated, do more seeds come?
More seeds are not
what?
necessary.
Okay.
Catalysts may come, okay, but catalysts won't get involved. What I mean by that is, you're not going to change the angelic nature of an angel if it begins to attend you. It will always be an angel, but it will help enhance your life. And there is some mutual enhancement, but it's more of a food relationship in that regard. But you see, that's a catalytic approach to it. So the things that come to you will be catalytic or corrosive. You do have to know that too, because anyone who begins on a personal development journey and actually begins to achieve a certain level of success will be attacked in the astral light. They will be attacked. Their corrosive things come to them to try to take that away. It's part of the planet's inborn protection mechanism, really, in most cases. In some cases, it's just wrong manufacture. But yeah, those are the things that can come. And so there's an alchemical process called separation, right? That goes along with that, being able to separate the coarse from the fine. We'll get into what all these terms mean through time.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But more things don't come to enhance you. They just come to be a catalyst for your further enhancement, which is already in you. You know, those two higher centers that we've spoken of before, the higher emotional, the higher thinking center, are fully developed. They need nothing. They need no development whatsoever. It's you who needs development and to be able to communicate.
It's that they're developed, but they aren't active, or is it that they aren't, or we aren't active to be able to communicate and run with them?
Our channels of communication are severed.
Right.
Can't hear them under normal circumstances.
Right.
You aren't influenced by them, but they're always there trying. They're always there wishing to be able to have that kind of connection to you. But the thing is, they can't come down to your level. You see,
you have to rise to them.
Yeah, something that high will not come down to this level.
Right.
Yeah, you do. You have to rise to it. You have to rise to your level 4, right, of the astral light. You have to rise to that station, which is called human. Really, 5, 6, and 7 are subhuman. We don't belong there at all. Not a single part of us, except for biologically in our digestive system and elimination system. That's the only aspects of the human complex. But with regard to the essence of a human, it has no business in 5, 6, or 7 whatsoever. Now you'd think that's strange because people look at, level 5 of the astrolight has to do with teaching and higher learnings, doesn't it? 6 is sort of gain and loss. 7 is like really the crummy stuff. What does that mean? That humans shouldn't even be dabbling in that?
So what would you be saying that 5, 6, and 7 should be more of an automatic
Yes.
process, so that people don't have to spend too much time consciously there,
Right.
so that they can then be dealing consciously in.
Yeah,
in-
the right way to learn is to make demand of it and wait for it to come.
Okay. And that then causes me to think, demand in what way? What is it in the person that's making the demand?
Well,
What's
your
the
mental life,
criteria?
your brain life. You're not your brain life. It's in some respects, it's an entity, and in other respects, it's a machine, really. But basically, the brain is fully functional. It's just, again, we don't have good access to it. But your brain makes demand of the astral light for something to come to inform it, and it does. Now, sometimes, I'm not saying it's not helpful, sorry. I'm not saying it's not helpful, right, to read things, because it can get you on a tuning fork level of something, right? What was the advice that was always given before? If you're going to study Egypt, it's okay to go get a book on it, but just look at the pictures, right? Don't read the garbage that the Egyptologists are saying about it. Just look at the pictures, get on the signal of it. That's the right way to learn. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It explains how it works,
Yeah.
but not how to get at it.
Okay. That we will cover
Okay.
in the upcoming meetings, okay? How to get at it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I have a small, rather humble alchemical lab. And the reason why is because what did I say once to you, Mark? Do what you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know it, do it anyway. This is the add-on now. If you don't know it, do it anyway, because it'll show you what you don't know, right? And so you got this this distillation train, which I think I've sent pictures out, right? This distillation train. Well, I had a certain question about it had to do with the mentality versus the emotional aspects of a person. What comes first, right? What manifests first in a personal development journey? And so I had to set up this whole experiment so that I could watch it happen, because physics is going to follow the rules of physics. You see, as above, so below, as without, so within, however you want to put that. But I was able to watch the process of this distillation happen and watch how things manifested, and then learn something about myself. So, Hana, it is also something that you do, because it'll teach you something. You can actually do something in the physical world. Now, I could have perhaps devised an experiment where I painted something, especially using geometric symbols, because you can get there through that. Or even a quadratic equation, for example, you can get there through that. You can get there through numbers. You can get there through all sorts of things. Yeah. But that's the way that it works. You can't forever philosophize and theorize. The only way you're ever going to know is to do. And once you start to do it, actually do something, you'll realize what you don't know, and it'll automatically inform you of what you do need to go then make demand of. To go back to your question, Mark. To go back to your question, comma, Mark. Not to go back to your question, Mark.
Yeah.
All right. There's a
Oh, comma. I thought you said karma.
comma. Yes.
Comma.
However, comma. Yeah. Right. Language can be ambiguous when you string words like question mark together. You see?
Yeah.
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 All right. So Hannah, well, okay, first of all, one thing I wanted to bring up, because I did point this out.
Mhm.
You've sat in the meeting before where I've told you, and even in this one where I've told you that Gurdjieff's whole system, the whole fourth way system, is 100% alchemical. Okay, he used terms like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen in a very unique way, because he wanted to bypass the critical factor that the people of his day had when it came to things like alchemy. Yeah, it was when kind of on the heels of the scientific revolution, where people were like literally looking at alchemy as baloney, right? Oh, those crazy hermits trying to turn lead into gold. And, now we have chemistry, right? Now we've removed the scientist from the equation and we just have formulas. Yeah. We take a butterfly out of the air, we dry it out, we pulverize it, we grind it up and figure out all the chemical constituents that makes a butterfly, and then we understand the butterfly. I hope you sense the irony in that.
Mhm.
We now know the complete chemical formula of a butterfly. You see, that's what he was up against. You do understand they didn't understand what a butterfly was,
Yeah.
just because they came up with the formula for it, all of its pieces. But that's what he was up against. And so he goes, right, what I'm going to do is I have been charged to teach alchemy to the world, or to those who would listen anyway. But they're all thinking chemistry. So I'm going to call fire, right? Air, earth, water, fire. I'm going to call fire hydrogen. I'm going to call, I'll go in order here. I'm going to call oxygen. I'm sorry, I'm going to call water oxygen. I'm going to call air nitrogen and earth carbon. And then people will think it's a chemistry experiment. And they'll become open to the message, you see.
Right.
Really clever man, really clever in that regard. Okay, he was teaching the exact same things, but using a terminology and a language that wouldn't cause them to immediately shut down, which is what they would be likely to do in a case like that. Okay, let me do this too, and then we'll get into the reading of that. All right, so be prepared.
You got away with it, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
The neutral vector, yeah, almost. The neutral vector. Positive, negative, neutral. Huh? Who can explain it? Who can give me a lesson on positive, negative, and neutral, or each other a lesson? Oh, I'm about to knock your socks off. No one? Come on, be
Yeah,
daring. Be daring. What's the neutral vector? Tell me about the neutral vector. I'm not gonna thread it in. Okay, I'm not gonna thread it in, but you know where I'm going with this. That everybody in certain societies and organizations and whatnot think they understand the positive, negative, and neutral, right? What's the neutral vector? Everyone's scrambling around, aren't they? Looking for the neutral vector in things. Go ahead, Hannah. Be brave.
Yeah, I was going to say the neutral vector would be equilibrium. The positive is pitching. The negative is receptive.
Right. Okay. So what's the neutral vector in the bar of man and woman? What's the neutral vector in the bar of day and night? Go ahead, Mark.
Dusk and dawn.
Yeah. It's actually what crosses it. Let me give you a quick lesson, okay? This one's going to take you extremely far. The law of two can't really exist in isolation, all right? It always produces a result, and it always goes this way, having to do with the positive vector. Okay, we'll just call this the positive vector going this way and this way, and we'll call this the negative vector. This is how the law of two works, All right, they intersect one another. Now, you've had this before. Let's call this hot, and let's call this cold. Let's call this wet, and let's call this dry. Okay, the positive vector, gosh, I can't wait till you get this. You're going to see the triangle in this all of a sudden here, but the positive vector always goes this way. The negative vector goes this way, okay? This is how the law of two interacts. Whenever you get two things like that together and they intersect, they summon 4 neutralizers. What are those 4 neutralizers? If you have hot and dry, something that is hot and dry, you've got fire. And by the same token, something wet and cold, you have water. I did that W of misjustice. 1 second. Okay, you've got water. If you have something hot and wet, then you've got air. And if you've got something cold and dry, you've got earth. All 4 of those are neutral vectors. It just depends on, okay, so they are the conductors of force. So let's say instead you call this summer. Okay, hot and dry. Summertime, hot and dry, isn't it? Cold, well, let's see. Wet and cold. What would that be? Come on. Wet and
Winter.
cold. Winter, yeah. Okay. Dry and cold. Autumn. Leaves get all crunchy, cools down.
Autumn.
Yeah, autumn. Okay. And of course, spring. Now, this goes everywhere. The neutralizing vector is the one that you are always seeing. You see, people are looking at this the wrong way. They see summer and they go, oh, let's see, the opposite of summer is winter. So where's the neutral vector? It must be in spring and fall. No. Summer is the neutral vector between hot and dry. You see, that's the opposites, the real opposites that are at play. It manifests as summer. That's the neutral vector. So you can draw it another way, couldn't you? You can say, oops, wrong way. This is the way it's usually drawn. And you've got positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, and positive would be hot and cold. Negative would be wet and dry. And the neutral vector would be the 4 elements. Get this, and this will open up everything for you, because you only ever have to ask yourself, how is hot and cold manifesting in a situation? And how is wet and dry manifesting in a situation? I've said this before. There are only 3 laws. There's the law of 3, law of 7, and the law of unity. In this aspect of the law of 3, everything you encounter will have a hot, cold bar and a wet, dry bar. Now, what's hot and cold? Hot and cold is the state of the internal energy of something. It's of course relevant, or relative, I should say. Yeah, you could take an ice cube and it would be hot in space, right? Which would be absolute 0, the average temperature of space being absolute 0 as opposed to 32 degrees. Yeah, well, in American terms anyway, or 0. All right. What's wet and dry? Well, technically speaking, it has to do with how affected it is by shear forces. Something that is wet, in other words, something that is fluidic, really is has no shear point. Yeah? It will just conform. It'll just like you pour cup into, or water into cup, and it's going to conform to the shape of the cup. It doesn't get sheared by the cup. Do you understand what I mean by that? Whereas if you strike a rock, it's dry. It has a shear point. It will break to the force of it. It won't conform. So that's one bar. The other one is how much energy it has into it. If you begin to look at every situation in life, every phenomenon that you ever encounter, which is, of course, all your phenomenons are going to be here. Well, let's take it to alchemy, okay? Every medication, every spagyric medication that they came up with was either air, earth, water, or fire in its nature. Every disease, air, earth, water, or fire, right? Or has the natures of hot and dry, cold and wet, those sorts of things. Every planet has this nature to it. Those are the manifestations. The reason why we don't see the neutral vector is because all we ever see is the neutral vector, the conductor of the positive and negative forces. This is the biggest mystery in fourth way. And people are always running around looking for the neutral vector, when the neutral vector really is always the result. It's the other two you don't see. Do you understand?
Pierce,
Yeah.
Pierce, can we say that the neutral vector is what's generated from the other two?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like man and woman, they can generate a child.
Sure.
Would that be a neutralizing vector? Or
Yes, it would, but
something-
it would be one of the possible neutralizing vectors. You see, a man and woman can generate love. A man and woman can generate hate. A man and woman can generate a child. A man and woman can generate a business. They can generate a religion. You see, it's one, and you can take all of these things that a man and woman can generate and classify them as to whether they are air, earth, water, or fire in their nature. The neutral vector only has 4 possibilities. You need to learn to see that to be an alchemist, okay? So, start looking at regular objects like a piece of chalk. What does this correspond to? We talked about correspondences earlier, right? Is it hot or cold?
Cold.
You're gonna go with cold, okay? We'll challenge reasoning at another point in time. I just want you to begin to think along these lines. And is it wet or dry?
Dry.
Dry, yeah. Or is it? Because it can also, it's dry, yeah. All right. So where does that put it? Which element? Hot and dry. I'm sorry, cold and dry. Cold and dry.
That'd be earth.
Huh? There you go.
Earth.
Yeah. It's an earth element, right? This gets into so much territory. So much territory. All right. I don't think what's coming back at me from your eyes right now tells me that you don't see the depth of this yet. At some point in time, you're going to come back and I'll see that radiation coming back in your eyes where it's almost like you get it, where you understand it. Yeah. You've been looking in the wrong place your whole life. It's okay. So have I. Yeah. Till I didn't. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, it's more a case of we do understand the depth of it.
Oh, good.
But the enormity is so great. It's like how to not just have it as some kind of academic thing, but to appreciate it in a bigger way.
Do you realize though, if you know this, if you actually know this, it makes it possible to know anything.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, this is why when you said, right,
Yeah.
can somebody give a lesson on this? Because I don't know it, as in really have it a part of me.
Yeah.
I've got the basic understanding, but it's not actually that deep. It's not a deep knowing that's part of me. I could have just done drawing and
Sure.
but it wouldn't feel as if it was actually connecting to what it is at essence.
if you want to know the unseen worlds, look at the neutral vector, anything, this piece of chalk, for example, and then ask yourself, where does it sit? What force is its hot cold vector, and what force is its wet dry vector? What things are at play in this? Did you know this is a medicine? Well, not this, because this isn't real chalk. This isn't real what is it? What's chalk? Calcium bicarbonate, I think, in a condensed form. I could be wrong. Is that right? Okay. This isn't real chalk. They've stopped making real chalk. But back in the 80s, interestingly enough, back in the 1980s, in Harlem. Do you know where Harlem is here in America? It's kind of like considered this very rough, poor aspect, right, of the United States in New York. Okay,
Of New York.
real tough, yeah. And the kids that were going to school kept stealing chalk from the chalkboards. And it's not that big a deal, right? Wasn't very expensive, of course, but they did an investigation as to why the kids were stealing it. And they found out that they're eating the chalk. Now, and it is calcium, right? Yeah, because that's right. And what they then found is that the reason why the kids were eating the chalk is because they were calcium deficient. They weren't getting enough things like milk or spinach or things that have the nutrient value of calcium in it. Now, do you think these little 8 and 10-year-olds knew that they were calcium deficient and therefore decided to go and nick chalk and eat it, right? They just thought it was cool. But their complex knew that it was what was needed. It's a medication, and it treats a certain ailment, you see. Everything is medicinal if you look at it from that standpoint. Now, doesn't mean that you go and eat everything or ingest everything. For God's sake, please don't, right? But being in the presence of something, can actually help you, can help you get this influence. If you're missing this earth influence, then surrounding yourself and bringing those things through the idea we spoke of before of correspondence can help to balance you. This is alchemy, you see? Right. And it works differently, by the way, than homeopathy. Just to give you a quick update, or not update, but insight into this. Homeopathy generally will, like if you have irritable, stomach or intestines, they'll prescribe something in a very small amount that irritates your stomach and intestines even more, because they think that what that does is then it causes the body to summon the forces to heal it, you see. That's how that, and it's just in small amounts that they do that. Whereas alchemy or alchemical medicinal practice looks at the imbalance and says, okay, too much fire over here, therefore, and it's not that you need more water, right? Because you can't get there. They lower the temperature a little bit and they get you into an earth mode and then into a water mode, you see, to help balance things out. So it's not exactly, doesn't exactly use opposites, it uses adjacents. But now, if you understand this, my friends, if you understand this, you're in a position to understand how healing works in the universe. You're in a position to understand how psychology works in the universe. You're in a position to understand how personal development works, how everything works, because there's nothing outside of this, you see. This is the laws. They're very simple and profound all at the same time. Yeah, okay, good. Spine's tingling yet? I hope so. I hope so. All right. Yeah, all the way up there, isn't it? Good. Good. That's excellent. Okay, Hannah, please do us the honor. I emailed Hannah beforehand and asked if she would read this short document, which is called what? Called the
Emerald Tablet.
The Emerald Tablet. Now, let me give a bit of history on this. First of all, some say this is everything you need to know about alchemy. You get this, you don't have to read anything else, you don't have to understand anything else. This is the entirety of it, okay? We're going to go one at a time, okay? So just read the first stanza of it.
In truth, without deceit, certain and most veritable.
Right. What does that tell you? In truth without deceit, most certain and veritable, right? Is that what it says? Okay.
Yeah.
I see that as kind of setting the stage. All right. This is a call over. This is a call over to your mentality and to your being of what's about to follow. It says, wake up, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Here's what's about to follow. Okay. Next one, next stanza. Rubric. I should call it a rubric. Do you know what a rubric is? No? All right.
Yeah.
They call it a rubric because when they wrote it in the classical way, they would always make the first letter of each stanza red. Okay, ruby, rubric, and then the rest would be written out. This is, of course, translated from Latin, and it's not in red. But if you decide to make a copy for yourself, I would suggest, handwriting it out and doing a red first letter and handwriting the rest of it in black. Okay, keep going. Number 2.
That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below. To accomplish the miracles of the one thing, and just as all things have come from this one thing, through the meditation of the one mind, so do all created things originate from this one thing through transformation.
Yeah, we talked about all of this today in a way, didn't we? We talked about the idea of correspondence. That which above is like that which is below and vice versa. Yes. But what's this one thing and this one mind? What are those? What do you suppose the one thing is, or the one mind is?
Not sure. Could it be the soul or the spirit?
Oh, those 2 things, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm going to ask you to contemplate what this means every time you read one of these stanzas, because I want you to do a reflection before these 16 weeks, at the very beginning of these 16 weeks, and then afterwards. And I want you to ask yourself on the 16th week the same question, what these mean, because you will understand it at a much deeper level. Okay? Number 3, please.
The Father is the Son. Its
The
mother,
Father is the Son, right? Keep going.
its mother, the moon.
Mm-hmm.
The wind carries it in its belly. Its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all, the consecration of the universe. Its inherent strength is perfected if it is turned into earth.
Right. So, what does that mean to you? What does the sun mean in this context and the moon? Carries the wind in its belly. You've got air, right? You've got the mention of earth in there, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, can we, at this point in time, be safe to assume that the aspects of the sun and the moon have to do with the fire and water principles?
Yeah.
Starting to see the allegorical nature of the way that they use language, mixing metaphors. Yeah, the wind in its belly, right? That's obviously air. Right? Read it again. Read number 3 again. Listen to it this time with that in mind.
The Father is the Sun. Its mother, the moon. The wind carries it in its belly. Its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all, the consecration of the universe. Its inherent strength is perfected if it is turned into earth.
Yeah, right. You see, this is what they're saying. This is the fundamental. This is the origin of all, right? This is the symbolism behind the cross. These 2 intersecting aspects that generate the 4 elements. All right, number 4. I'm not going to explain it all. I just want to get you working on it, yeah? By the way, Enzi, this is available on the sarmong.com website under Alchemy. It's the last entry on the forum in Alchemy. You can find it there.
Okay,
I'll send a
thank you.
link if you need it.
I'll
Okay.
check it out.
All right, number 4, please.
Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross. Gently and with great ingenuity, it rises from earth to heaven and descends again to earth, thereby combining the powers of the above and the below within itself.
Right. What does that say to you or to any of you?
It seems that there's a constant going up and down all the time between what's higher and what is more corporeal or
Yes.
solid.
Yes, absolutely. It's also describing the features of calcination, dissolution, separation, and conjunction, which is processes that you'll learn what those are. I've also got them up there, right? So it ties into the 4 elements again. Calcination means burning, right? Reducing it to ash. They thought it was calcium, like calcium, when you get that white ash. Dissolution, dissolving. Separation, evaporation in some respects, and conjunction, drawing back in together. So you're right, it's this kind of interestingly enough, you can think about it this way too. Starting at the lowest level, you've got Earth, right? Think about our planet. Then above Earth you have water, right? Because the oceans sit upon the Earth, right? In sea basins. Above that you've got air, and above that you've got the fire, the sun, the solar aspect of things, or the atmosphere, if you will, the outer edge. Yeah. So you got those 4 elements there too. It's everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, next one, please.
Thus you will obtain the glory of the whole universe. All obscurity will be apparent to you. This is the greatest force of all powers because it overcomes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing.
Right. I'm not going to ask for an explanation, okay? It's okay. I know you don't understand it at this point. It's not saying anything negative, right? I just want you to register that in yourself, that there's a very big mystery here. I will give you a clue that it's going into the idea of fermentation, distillation, and congealing. That's the only hint I'll give. Go ahead, keep going.
In this way was the universe created. From this comes many wondrous applications, because this is the pattern.
Yeah. What they're speaking of there borders on the idea of quintessence. This, when the neutral vector stops being 4 things and comes back into being one thing. Okay, that's what they call the quintessence. This idea of this 5th element, if you will, something that's more the prima materia, more primal than the 4 elements themselves. All right, the whole universe, meaning it's all composed of this. All right, good. Go on.
Therefore, I am called thrice great Hermes, having all 3 parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. Herein have I thoroughly explained the operation of the sun.
Ah, right.
Wow.
So he's saying a sun level connection, right? This was alleged to have been written 12,000 years ago, by the way. All right, and has been passing hands from one to the next, starting off in Sumeria and then Egypt and then Greece, and then into the also Greece, but the Latin Empire, and eventually in Italian, and eventually to us, yeah, in English. But this thrice great, what does that mean? Are you thrice great? Can you be? I would say
Actually,
that.
what those 3 things are.
Yeah, right, of course. Yeah, once you become the embodiment of that triangle I've got written on the board, you can be Mark Trismegistus. Yeah.
Yeah, I told you.
Yeah, Hermes, I told you so. Hana Trismegistus. You see? Thrice great. That's what that means. Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, that's what he's talking about there. You've heard the term Hermes Trismegistus, yes. Okay. It means that he was a living embodiment of the triangle, of the law of three. That's what that means. Ah, right. And he just described the operation of the sun. What does that mean? That's a solar level connection, sun level connection. That's where this work will take you. That's what it means to go from you start off like this, don't you? Start off as Saturn and you end up at the sun. Death to life. Caput mortem to Sol Invictus. All right.
Yeah.
Worth 15 more weeks of your time?
I think so. Yeah.
Probably. Okay.
That's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to learn all kinds of things in the upcoming weeks. I hope today was a good introduction to it, and as you braced in anticipation for some of the things that are to come. Okay. Any questions before I?
I have one.
Yeah.
Compared to other self-development works, what's the benefit of alchemy? Is it more, I don't know, practical or?
I would say that it has the same goal, honestly, as other self-development. You didn't say religions, but you said self-development things. So I would compare it to things like Tantra, Taoism, certain types of yoga, right? Those are more like development paths. They all have that goal of conscious enlightenment and self-perfection. The reason why I think it's the reason why I think it has a lot of value is because of the time that we live in. Not necessarily that it's intrinsically more valuable, but the time we live in, people need to be able to do something. Yeah, yoga definitely touches on it. Taoism is very, I mean, it's so hard, right? Because all you do is sit there and wait for it to happen. It's still work, but Taoism is really hard in that regard because we lack the focus. At least if you're physically doing something in the real world and trying to achieve a result as well as educate yourself on the natural laws, then it keeps you connected to it. I think it's a bit more expedient in that way. Yeah, rather than sitting on your bum for 30 years and waiting for enlightenment, which can happen, can also happen. It's not disparaging that. It's just, I think it might be more effective for some folks.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else? Was this good?
I've got an observation.
Please.
Your chemistry set, your apparatus, it's one of your real passions, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
I'll tell you why.
And why?
When you were speaking about that, the sound changed. There was a slight ring in the air, and if this was being taken in a big hall, it would have caused feedback, and if the volume hadn't been brought down, because the conductivity increased, and that's what changed that ringing sound. I don't know if it will pick up on the recording, but I spotted it.
Yeah, I felt it too.
As well as Chelsea.
Yeah, I felt it. I felt it at that. I know the moment you're talking about, and I felt it too because at that point in time, in my mind, I made that mental connection to the thing itself, and it brought with it all of the new discovery and new light and new, the
so that's
passion.
what it turned up. Yeah,
because the alchemist is part of the experiment, right?
Yeah.
If you start smelling oregano, then then you'll know you've really got it. But yeah, that's the first thing I manufactured.
Oregano.
Okay, good. Shall we call it? Is this useful?
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Where's the button? There we are.